On opening day of 2019, 99 of the 882 players on Major League rosters were from the Dominican Republic. That's about 11.6%. The second most represented foreign country was Venezuela with 68 players, about 7.7%. The Dominican Republic has a population of about 10 million people, which is 33 times smaller than the US, but historically it produces more than a tenth of the MLB's athletes. Hello, my name's Moof.
I'm Eli.
I'm Monty.
And today we want to talk about why and how so many players born in the Dominican Republic have made it to the leagues, and what the consequences have been to the DR. Welcome to When the Lights Go Out. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I can't complain.
You guys ready for me to, ruin baseball just a little bit for you?
Oh, yeah. Please do.
Before we get into the podcast, I'd just like to thank everyone out there for listening in. If you like what you hear, make sure to check out whenthelightsgooutpodcast.com. It's our website, and you can find all our podcasts, a bunch of really cool blog posts on a bunch of different subjects that we feel might not need an entire podcast to talk about. Also, shout out to our editor, Kate Rempe. She's been a huge help with the blog post. And you can also check us out on Instagram at whenthelightsgooutpod and Twitter at lightsgooutpod.
I want to start with the history of baseball in the Dominican Republic. Going all the way back, our story starts in 1866 in Cuba. In 1866, Cuba was still a colony of Spain. By this time, Cuba was in dire need for reform, but Spain just wasn't listening. The Spanish government said they'd listen to the concerns, but instead they increased taxes and banned all reformist meetings in Cuba. By 1868, Cubans were sick of this, and they started a war against their parent country. This was actually the first of 3 conflicts that Cubans would fight against Spain, and this one lasted 10 years, so this war was aptly named the 10 Years' War.
No.
Yes. At the beginning of this conflict between Cuba and Spain, baseball was already a pretty popular sport in Cuba. Because of this, when Cuban refugees fleeing the war across the Dominican Republic, they brought baseball with them. The sport caught on really fast in the DR, mostly because there was no established sports already in the country yet. Around this time, the largest industry in the DR was the sugar industry. Almost everyone worked in some aspect of making sugar. As such, sugar grinding factories began forming their own teams. A team from one factory would play another, and there were actual high stakes to this game. They were playing to win, and when a team won, that team was rewarded by not having to work. This was where baseball really began to take off. It was transformed from a more casual game in the Dominican Republic to an actual competitive sport.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I didn't tell you two that I was going to do this, but I'm going to give you a trivia question about Dominican Republic baseball.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah?
Did you prepare for this?
I'm ready.
He did not know. He could not have prepared for this.
Okay.
In what year was Dominican Republic established as a colony?
As a colony?
As a colony.
From Spain?
I'm going to say 1628.
Ooh, too early. Too late, actually. Much earlier than that.
I'm going to say 1572.
It was earlier than that. I'll give you the answer. It was in 1496 by Diego Columbus, actually the brother of Christopher Columbus.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a cool fact, yeah.
I didn't know he had a brother.
Me neither until I looked this back up. So imagine you're working in a sugar factory at this time, right? Your boss comes up to you like, yo, we're putting together a baseball team. Do you want in? Keep in mind, you have no idea what baseball is at this point. And your boss is just like, if you win the game, you'll get a day off. I would take this deal. No question.
Yeah, there's no bad side to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even do this today. I don't have a job, but I'd still go out and play a game I've never heard of if someone came and asked me for it.
The Dominican Professional Baseball League was founded in 1951. It started out as a summer league, but then switched to a winter league during the 1955-1956 season. This league began just before a very pivotal moment for the MLB. The MLB was getting much of their international talent from Cuba, but during the 1970s, due to rising tensions between the US and Cuba, Fidel Castro banned all Cuban baseball players from emigrating to play in the league. This forced the MLB to start looking for other places to bring talent from. The league started to look more and more towards the Dominican Republic for talent. When they took a serious look, they saw a place with a, and I quote, well-built baseball infrastructure and some challenging economic conditions, which fostered an environment for talent. To me, this quote means that they saw really good baseball players and they saw extreme poverty. So then they were just like, hey, we can exploit
We can
this.
exploit that.
We
Yeah,
can exploit this.
that's exactly what that sounds like.
So this is truly when the exploitation of Dominican Republic baseball talent started. Teams took a look around the country and realized the poverty levels they were dealing with. They found that because of this massive poverty, they could sign and trade players from the Dominican Republic for a much lower price than they could sign and trade an American player for. In an article in the University of Pennsylvania Journal of International Law, the author, Diana L. Spagnolo, writes, teams preferred to assign 20 Dominicans at $5,000 apiece, rather than only 2 Americans at $50,000 each. MLB franchises were using the Dominican Republic like a Costco for athletes. They were just signing players in bulk. But while these teams were trying to bring over foreign players to the US, they ran into a pretty big obstacle, an inability to get enough visas for all the players. To get around this problem, they came up with a pretty creative solution, actually. They decided to build facilities known as academies in the Dominican Republic itself, slashing the costs of everything by a large margin. So now I have another trivia question for you two.
Trivia
There are
question
4
too.
total. I'm just like throwing it out there. There are 4 total trivia questions in this whole thing.
So we're both wrong so far, but
Yeah,
here's where Monty's taking the lead.
No. I think you're wrong.
Okay.
Again,
We'll see about that.
The Dodgers established the first MLB academy in the Dominican Republic. What year did they do this in?
Let's give Eli the first guess this time.
I'm pretty sure it's 1987.
I want to say 1982.
Eli was right. It's 1987.
Woo!
All right, so
That's right.
Monty, where's the lead?
All
Yeah,
right.
Monty, where's the lead?
Well, we have 3 more questions. We're good to go.
2 more.
Oh,
Yeah, that's 2 more questions for me to build up a nice 3-0 lead.
or 2 more questions for it to be a 2-1.
So real quickly, I want to mention the path a kid has to take from the Dominican Republic to get to the minors or the majors. There are, generally speaking, 3 main steps. Number 1, at a middle school age, a child has to be recruited by a Buscone. I'll explain what a Buscone is a little later. Next, at the legal signing age of 16, the kid has to be signed by an MLB team's academy. Lastly, when his academy coaches deem him fit to go to the next level, the kid is sent to the US to play in the minor league, and then he's in the system. So, this is my 3rd trivia question.
Trivia.
This is a multiple choice for you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting this one.
All right. So, which one of these is not a real minor league team? A, the Asheville Tourists. B, Burlington Bees. C, Clinton Canaries. And D, the Dayton Dragons.
I'm gonna go the what was the C?
Clinton Canaries.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one.
That was the one I was thinking of.
You can pick the same thing.
No. I'm thinking. I think I'm going to go with the Birmingham Bees.
It was Burlington Bees.
Burlington Bees.
All right. Well, Monty's right.
Oh yeah.
The,
Give me that one.
the actual name of that team is the Clinton Lumber Kings.
Of course,
Yes, yes.
as we all know.
How is the fake one more like sound real?
Yeah, right?
The Lumber Kings?
So, what's wrong with this entire system? The short version of this is that the MLB and the US are exploiting the Dominican Republic and its players. There are 2 main ways this is happening. The first way is they're exploiting the physical talent, which is the players of the Dominican Republic. And then there's de-skilling of the Dominican Republic's economy and its labor force. First, let's talk about the exploitation of physical talent. The MLB and its teams are spending millions of dollars in building academies and facilities in the DR to save millions of dollars in finding cheap talent. They're taking players from an impoverished country and offering them a fraction of what an American with the same skill set would get. Because one, more often than not, the players and families don't know any better. And two, the money offered to them amounts to a small fortune to them. So they aren't necessarily looking to get the most money they can. They're just trying to get whatever they can. Dominican players are focused on job migration, so they want to get to the United States to earn money to send it back to their families in the Dominican Republic. A lot of times they're just happy to be signed.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it's a sweatshop but for baseball rather than just for general materials and products.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good way to look at it.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So that brings up another important question, right? Like, how are players evaluated? What is the worth of a Dominican youth? So the most important factor going in always is going to be the talent that they possess, right? But a very, very close second is age. MLB academies are obsessed with getting players the youngest they possibly can, which legally is 16. On signing day, the longer you remain unsigned, the less leverage you have, and therefore you're going to be signed for less. Teams can go to very extreme lengths to get a better deal with a player. A team can accuse a player of engaging in fraud to appear younger to get more money, and this comes with an immediate suspension from the league office. And this usually is accompanied with a lengthy appeal process. The process may force a player to turn over documentation or school records to prove his age, or go through less than accurate medical testing like bone scans. If a player is cleared, then a team can swoop in and get a deal that is a fraction of the cost to them than it would have been earlier. If a Dominican player is already on the academy roster during this appeal process, then he just goes unpaid.
Yes, and not only are they targeting people who don't have a good idea of what's going on as far as the whole system is concerned, but they're also targeting the most vulnerable young people who don't really have any way they can fight back, even if they find out it's an unjust system that isn't set up to benefit them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's even more exploitative, I guess that's the word.
Yeah.
Than like recruiting kids to college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's such a young age.
Yeah, you
for
kind of
anyone to do anything.
Your brain isn't fully developed, so it's accompanied by the fact that one, your brain isn't fully developed, so your decision making will be a little off, and then you come from such a impoverished background that any amount of money is huge.
Especially when they're the ones that are in charge of training you and giving you information. They can tell you what they want you to know, so that you make the decision that fits that point of view. And if you don't know any better, what are you gonna do?
Exactly. So now let's talk about the second way the MLB exploits the Dominican Republic and its athletes: the de-skilling of the economy and its labor force. Since the Dominican Republic's major export is baseball players, the population of the country is based around producing and maintaining the production of these athletes. Since such an emphasis is put on producing these baseball players, many other industries have taken a backseat to baseball, which is obviously not great for the economy. Nowadays, a fairly large portion of the labor force is involved in or around MLB academies in positions such as cooks, janitors, groundskeepers, caretakers, or barrios, which are scouts. I mentioned another job earlier that is much, much more heavily involved in the production of these players than any other: buscones. So buscones are kind of pseudo-agent type people who also coach and train the athletes before they get signed to an academy. I say pseudo-agent type because in addition to training, they also broker deals between the youths they train and the academies that they hope to get signed to. The major difference between agents and buscones are that buscones are much more involved in an athlete's daily life. They might provide food, clothing, or basic necessities to not only the athlete, but also to his family. Because of this daily involvement, buscones take a much larger cut of the deals they negotiate between athletes and academies. They could routinely take 30%, while regular agents in the US would take between 2 and 5%. This kind of makes sense on one hand, because if you're housing, training, feeding, clothing not only the athlete and his family for 3 years, you want to be compensated appropriately. But then the other side of this is that buscones aren't known to be the most trustworthy of people.
That's really interesting that they have like all of the power in the power dynamic between a Buscone, you called them,
Buscone, yeah.
and like a young player. The player basically has no power. Like,
yeah,
they don't. First of all, they don't know anything. But second of all, they're relying on this person to like feed them and like their family or whatever and train them. So it's really all on the like adult in that situation. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And coming from the MLB's perspective, it's even like set up in a perfect way for them, where I'm guessing they're not regulating these Buscones. So not only are they paying the players a lot less, but they don't have to regulate the people who are finding their players, kind of like regular scouts and agents that they have to pay for in the American areas where they're scouting.
Exactly. Like, this system might sound great to some people, right? But then the huge problem is, like you said, that Buscones aren't monitored or governed by any authority. And because of this, they vary in how ethical they are. Some players might get a Buscone that has all the right intentions for him, and then some might get a Buscone that only sees them as a product. Buscones have been known to do some terrible things like steal from players, get them involved with fraud, like I mentioned earlier, and even administer performance-enhancing drugs to them. So not only is the population of the Dominican Republic de-skilled, but so are the players, because as I mentioned in the pathway they take, players often leave school at a middle school age to start training by a Buscone who recruited them. Most often, that's pretty much all the education they get. Buscones don't provide them with a new source because that costs money. If they are lucky enough to get an academy contract, they're only taught English, American culture, and the ways of baseball. At this point in time, only the Arizona Diamondbacks Academy provides their players with an opportunity to finish high school through an online education program.
Yes, and not only are they taking them when they're young and uneducated and not willing to make or ready to make a really good decision about their future, but then they continue to keep them ignorant because they don't educate them going forward. So they're kind of just completely trapped in the system. They have no other way out. They have no skills that can be applied in other industries. They're completely forced to be working for the MLB for very cheap cost.
Yeah, and if they don't pan out, they have no way of making it back in their own country. So it kind of makes this cycle of like young kids coming from impoverished areas that learn English and baseball, and only a select few will actually go to the MLB and like make enough money for their family, and the rest of them will just kind of continue that cycle of poverty.
Because they left school at such an early age to train, they're pretty much left with no real life skills, right? They don't have a chance to get out of this vicious cycle of poverty, and they usually end up taking low-paying jobs.
So, is there like any good that these academies do?
Yeah, there actually is. Beyond giving Dominicans the chance to make it to the minors and eventually the majors, there's one large benefit that they provide. Can you guess it?
Does this count as one of the questions?
Sure, Monty.
I think it's money.
You're right.
I also think it's money.
Well, you're both right. You both get a point.
I think those points should cancel it. Should cancel out. No. We're tied.
I'm seeing that as a solid 2-2 right now.
It's 1-1, and you know it.
2-2.
Fine.
Okay, 2-2. So, even if a player doesn't make it to the next level after the academy phase, he usually has a head start in life in the Dominican Republic financially. He can make a large lump sum amount as a signing bonus when he is initially signed to an academy, and he can make a lot during his time there. First-year players can make up to $600 per month. Second-year players can make up to $700 per month, and third-year players can make up to $750 per month. This may not seem like a lot here in the US, but keep in mind, in the DR, a low-skills job will only pay you around like $100 or $200 per month. Even if a player doesn't make it to the minors or the majors, he'll be given a head start in life in the Dominican Republic. You guys ready for your last trivia question?
You mean the one that's gonna give me the lead?
Tiebreaker.
Who was the first Dominican player in the Hall of Fame?
In the Hall of Fame?
In the MLB Hall of Fame.
Do you know this?
I think he's searching it up. That's illegal.
No, I'm not looking it up online. I'm looking up into our just list of players.
No,
I'm gonna go Felipe Alou.
Do you have a guess?
since I absolutely know that this is wrong, because he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, I'm gonna go Big Papi.
Incorrect for both. It's
Dang.
Oswaldo Virgil Sr., who coincidentally is also the first Dominican player in the MLB. So I want to give you both an example of all this exploitation that occurs. There's a player on the Twins right now named Miguel Sano. When he was being recruited to academies, he was seen as probably one of the best prospects to come out of the Dominican Republic at that point in time. He was projected to get about $7 to $8 million. And to put that in perspective, a first round pick in the MLB draft this year, his signing bonus, I believe, was like 7.5. So he was projected to get around $7 to $8 million. On signing day, a rumor came out that he was actually 17 years old and not 16. He was not signed, and he had to go through a bunch of tests, including the ones I mentioned earlier, where he had to go through an examination of all his documents and school records. And then he had to do a bone scan, which, just so everybody knows, does not give an exact age of the person. It only gives you a range. So the range that came back for him was 16 to 17 years old. He was signed 3 months after the National Signing Day for $3.5 million. Less than half of what he was projected to get.
Seems like such a small thing to fixate on too. Like, is there really that big a difference in terms of development for MLB players between the ages of 16 and 17? It just,
Especially knowing that like you're not gonna get 17 is probably like the minimum age for a high school graduate. So like American players are gonna be like 17, 18 when they go in the minors if they don't go to college.
So believe it or not, somehow there's a country that has a tougher time getting to the MLB than the Dominican Republic. Cuba. Because of the tension that I mentioned earlier between the US and Cuba, Cuban players have a history of defecting from their home country for a chance to play in the MLB. Jose Abreu, Dennis Baez, and Yasiel Puig, these are names that we know have played at a high level in their respective careers. In the December of 2018, the MLB struck a deal with the Cuban Baseball Federation. This deal would do 3 things. It would stop the need for Cuban baseball players to defect and the need for them to be trafficked out of the country into the US to play. It would also retain their eligibility to play in the Cuban National Series. And lastly, it would remove the ban of returning to Cuba the government usually puts on defecting players. The catch would be that the Cuban Baseball Federation would be allowed to claim a fee for every Cuban national hired by the MLB or the MILB. But as usual, all good things come to the end at the hands of Donald Trump.
Of course.
In April of 2019, the Trump administration reversed the deal that had been negotiated. They stated that payments made to the Cuban Federation are not authorized, and payments made to the Federation are payments made to the Cuban government. I would like to emphasize, just like the Cuban Baseball Federation did, that the Cuban Baseball Federation and the Cuban government are complete separate central government organizations. So at this point in time, Cuban players still have to defect from their home country and be trafficked through Mexico into the US to get a chance to play in the MLB. So now I want to turn it over to you two, right? So do you guys think this is a failure of capitalism on the part of the US and Dominican Republic, and I guess the world? Because in my mind, because Dominican players aren't subject to the MLB draft, they should be getting better deals in theory, and they should be getting what they're worth. But because of, I guess, some sort of collusion between MLB teams, they're not getting what they should be getting.
Yeah, I think it's the flaw that you kind of see in a lot of other industries in the U.S., where whether it's a monopoly, kind of like the MLB is with the sport of baseball, where they have complete control over what the players are going to be paid and what they're going to be paying people that work in their industry, or whether it's just kind of a thing where you're seeing with the outsourcing of a bunch of services and factory things and stuff like that to other countries. You kind of have the league not really caring about the regulations and the way these people are being treated in the other countries, but only caring about the final results they get at the end of it.
I also think it's interesting how these teams are putting money into academies and stuff, when in a similar way they could give money to fund the schools in the Dominican Republic and have baseball like be taught through there, because I mean a lot of middle schools and high schools in the US have some form of baseball team or program. So in that sense, you know, they could still get trained, but the fact that they're putting money into, you know, effectively something that is completely different from education, they're keeping their players uneducated, or I guess educated in the way that they want. You know, everything they're doing is not only to benefit the teams and the league, but also to, whether it's on purpose or inadvertent, they're affecting the people of the Dominican Republic in a very bad way.
Yeah, it really feels like they could still get the overall same result at the end of the day. Do it in a way that also helps the communities and the actual areas in Cuba and the Dominican Republic that are being affected negatively from the scouting system that's currently in place.
And I feel like if they invested more money into, I mean, obviously that they're investing a lot, and if they moved the money they were investing into the academies, into the school system and the communities in general, they might end up helping the Dominican Republic's economy, and that could give more people access to televisions or the internet or something, or more ways of accessing baseball, and therefore bring in more money to the MLB.
Just like improving the overall infrastructure, I feel like would go towards a lot, right?
Yeah, like it could only benefit them.
Yeah.
Because people will still want to play baseball. They just might have a better way of doing it, or other ways of seeing and experiencing it.
So I want to now throw a few facts at you guys and see what you think of these. So at this point now, all 30 MLB teams have either an full-on academy or just a training facility in the Dominican Republic. There are 2 MLB league offices. One, of course, is located in New York, and the second one is located in San Domingo, Dominican Republic, which is the capital of the Dominican Republic. Obviously, the Dominican Republic is a huge centerpiece for the MLB. At this point, MLB academies that are in the Dominican Republic not only train prospects from the Dominican Republic, but also players from Venezuela, Puerto Rico, San Martins, and Panama have also been known to go through the system. The Dominican Republic, I think it's fair to say, is a very, very strategic point of entry for international players from South America at the very least.
Yeah, and it kind of lends a little more weight to the argument they should be trying to improve the infrastructure. They already have so much invested in the area. You think they want to make it even more efficient and fruitful process of getting scouts or getting recruits from the Dominican Republic and the South America in general.
It reminds me very much of like older 19th and even some very early 20th century European and American imperialism.
Yeah.
You know, where they show up to an area, and whether it's under the guise of like being helpful or not, they're basically just stripping the raw materials from this area for their own benefit.
Since the MLB got to the Dominican Republic, it's been all exploitation. They definitely have a lot to improve upon, but I will say that they have come a long way. Thank you for listening. This has been When the Lights Go Out. I'm Moof.
I'm Eli.
And I'm Monty.
Catch you next time.
I'm going to be a professional beatboxer.